Hello and welcome to the Medics on TV3, where you are discovering the difference. Well, thank you for joining us on today's show where your health remains our priority. My name is Febi Sakala. I'm your host for today. I must mention that this is an interactive program. You can send your contributions via phone on the number displayed on the screen. These are 02 11 25 0843. Or text, or you can WhatsApp us on 0976 832269. Well, our topic of discussion today is suicide. And in layman's language, suicide is the act of intentionally ending one's own life. The impact of suicide extends beyond the individual, affecting families, friends, and communities, underscoring the importance of mental health awareness and support. And to help us discuss this topic, I'm joined by Dr. Matiya Ndengi, CEO/founder of Adulam Therapy and Wellness Center. He's a medical doctor and licensed counselor. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. Well, for your contributions, feel free to contact us on the line reflecting on your screen. For now, we take a break. So I should face there.
At the moment, at the moment, it's still on this camera. When you set up in a conversation house.
But how will I know?
I will need to get you.
Every Wednesday at 18 hours and repeats on Sunday at 15 hours. Only at ZNBC TV1.
So this is, it should be like a conversation, right? You can speak as when I ask a question, if you have many things to explain, you can just exhaust. It's 55 minutes programs.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's
All
quite
right.
long.
Yeah, no, it's quite packed.
Yeah.
There's what you call HIPAA integrity. They teach you, okay, how you are able to
I told you
identify
also wait
the
for
one
some
who
of the
can
questions.
that
Yes, I
help
did.
you, then how you can move away from such.
For all your topical sports discussions, watch Sport on every Thursday, live at 16 hours on TV3, channel 004 on Topstar.
Well, thank you so much. This is the Medics on TV3. Remember, our topic of discussion today is suicide, and on the program I have Dr. Matiya Ndengi, a founder and CEO of Adulam Therapy and Wellness Center. He's also a medical doctor and licensed counselor. So, Dr. Ndengi, what is the significance of September in the mental health world?
Well, Phoebe, the mental health world in September celebrates what you call the World Suicide Prevention Month of Awareness. So the entire month of September, awareness around the world on mental health matters and how suicide can be prevented is promoted. And on the 10th of September particularly, you have what you call World Suicide Prevention Day. So the WHO and the International Association for Suicide Prevention came up with this day so that matters like suicide can be advocated for. But we're not in September now, right?
Yeah,
but it's a very important topic that really should still continue to be talked about because it affects many lives.
Okay, thank you. So what is suicide? And is suicide hereditary?
That's a very nice question. So suicide, like you rightly said, it's it's death caused by intentional self-harm. When an individual decides to end their life by harming themselves, it's actually termed suicide. It actually comes from the Latin suicide. The sui means self, side means death. So it's self-inflicted death. So there is a hereditary component of it because you find that somebody who had a family history of someone who committed suicide has a higher risk of also thinking of committing suicide when they're in a distressing situation. So that's an environmental influence that you can have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not hereditary? Somehow it is hereditary?
It's not hereditary directly, but there are certain risk factors for suicide. For example, what we know is hereditary is depression, for example. Major depressive disorder, postpartum depression can sometimes be experienced in families. So if somebody has a predisposition to have depression symptoms, that means they'll be more likely to also think of suicidal thoughts. So it's not directly hereditary, but there are certain diseases, mental health conditions that may predispose the next person to also have suicidal thoughts.
Okay. So, Dr. Ndengi, how does one know they are being suicidal?
So when someone is suicidal, they are going to have certain thoughts which, are in their mind that they may talk about often. They may talk about not wanting to live anymore. They may talk about wanting to end their lives. And sometimes people don't take people seriously when they say they are thinking of taking their own lives. They think they're just joking. But it's a very serious matter, especially men. Men are prone to do the most drastic things to harm themselves. So when someone is suicidal, sometimes they also tend to have traits of wanting to give away things that they treasured. They want to isolate themselves. And there's a certain mnemonic or acronym that I would like our audience to know, which can help you to recollect the traits of someone who's suicidal. The word suicide itself, SUICIDE. So some of the symptoms are, which, for example, of depression, which are very highly linked to suicide, are the S, sleep. Somebody will have decreased sleeping patterns. They may oversleep, or they may sleep very little. U, that's underweight. They may become underweight or overweight depending on how their appetite is. Some will not be eating, they will be losing appetite, and that's another trait of somebody who is likely to be suicidal. I is interest. They'll lose interest in the things they loved. If they liked, for example, playing soccer, hanging out with friends, they'll isolate. They'll not be interested in those things. C is for concentration. They'll lose concentration at work, at school. They're just not focused with what they're doing because of that, those whatsoever stressor that is leading them to become depressed and eventually suicidal. I is for isolation. They'll start isolating themselves. They'll start, not wanting to be seen in public. Somebody's not coming to work, not coming to class. You should get concerned as a friend, as a parent. Say, what's going on with my friend? D, like I said at the beginning, is death. Somebody is talking about death all the time and talking about not wanting to live anymore. So that's one of the key points. And the last E is for energy levels. They'll be very tired all the time. Their esteem as well, they'll be very discouraged and feeling like they're not worth living, and very low depressed mood. So those characteristics are very characteristic of someone who is likely to be suicidal.
Oh, that's very interesting. I didn't know the letters had
Yes.
meaning to it.
Yeah.
So now, what are the myths surrounding suicide, and how can we spot it before it's too late? I know you've mentioned about this. Yeah.
Yes. So some of the myths concerning suicide is that people who are suicidal are attention seekers. They just want to, people to give them attention, and they just want to be the center of attention. But in reality, these people could be struggling with some social issues, some extenuating circumstances that are making them feel so depressed, so sad, and they're talking about suicide because they are under distress. So they're not seeking attention, but they really need help, and we need to support them rather than dismiss them to say, this person just likes to be the center of attention. But that is actually a cry for help. If somebody is talking about wanting to end their lives, it's something we should take seriously.
Okay.
Another myth is talking about suicide promotes suicide. There's a lot of stigma surrounding suicide, and people don't tend to talk about it much because they feel if you talk about it, others are going to be inclined to want to commit suicide. But actually, the opposite is true. When you raise awareness, people will be more aware, and be able to prevent it. Another myth is that suicides happen without warning, that somebody just ends their life and people will be like, oh no, we didn't know that this person was sad. But those who are in the inner circle would have noticed those signs I talked about. This person is withdrawn, they are very sad most of the time, they're losing concentration, they're talking about death, they don't look happy generally. They are isolating, they're not sleeping well, they're losing weight. So when you see these traits, then these are warning signs that you need to do something to help that person. So there are warning signs and people should be aware of them and should be able to intervene early before it's too late. Yes. And another myth is that people who commit suicide are weak and selfish. People will be able to tell them, say, no, you're just selfish, you don't want to think about others. But in actual sense, these people are struggling and they need to be assisted professionally. We need to give them support as family, as friends, so that they can, gain that strength. People have lost loved ones. I can tell you, Madam Sakala, that people sometimes have bereavement after bereavement after bereavement, maybe 3 consecutive bereavements. Then they'll sit to think, say, does God even care about me? Because they have gone through so much pain and also want to die. Yeah. But that's where we come in to support them, to encourage them so that they don't believe that life is not worth living. Another myth, about 6 myths, so this is the 5th one, to be depressed means that you are a lunatic, that you are crazy, When somebody is depressed, people think, this person, even just mental health generally, it doesn't mean that you need to be crazy for you to be feeling depressed. Any human being is at risk of being depressed, depending on what circumstances they experience, financial burdens, relationship problems, bereavements. All these can contribute to somebody beginning to feel suicidal. So it's not that a person is crazy or really needs to be incarcerated. They just need to be supported and they can carry on with life. And the last myth that I like to dispel is that being suicidal is a lifelong condition. It's something which can be overcome, and as somebody is supported, they can continue to live a life just as comfortably as they did before. I myself once had suicidal thoughts. When I was in medical school, it was so stressful. I had burnout, and I felt like, life doesn't seem worth living. Yeah. But with the support of family, friends, and just God's help, definitely I was able to overcome that and graduated as a medical doctor, and the future looks bright.
Okay, that's nice. So how much help do you need to offer to somebody whom you see showing these signs? Or what kind of support do you need to, show to them?
So when you see that somebody is going through these signs, you need to reach out to them. Find out, how are you doing? What's really on your mind? Sometimes people will not want to open up because maybe it's a very, sensitive issue. Maybe they have been abused. Maybe they have, had some disappointing loss which is so great and personal. But you need to talk to them, show them that you're concerned, that you care about them. And once they share that burden with you, it will actually make it easier for them. They say a problem shared is a problem halved. Yeah. So these people should be encouraged to talk to their family, to their friends, and even professional help. Psychologists, therapists, like you said, I'm also a licensed counselor. At my organization, we offer therapy to people remotely or in person, and it definitely offers, improvement, such that by the end of the therapy sessions, this person is happy and is ready to take on life's challenges again.
Okay, interesting. So, Dr. Ndengi, what are the statistics of suicide locally and globally? Do we have any? Because suicide, I know, has become common
Very
in our
true.
country.
Very true. So locally, statistics are scarce, but at least we have that out of every 100,000 people, the percentage is about 7.3% of people commit suicide. So that would be about 730 people out of that 100,000 people. But we have 18 million people. So you can imagine how big that problem should be countrywide, because suicide is on the increase. When you look at it from the global scale, every year about 730,000 people are known to take their lives because of suicide, which is a very sad statistic. And in low to middle income countries, that's where the lion's share of these suicides takes place. In countries like Zambia, Africa, low and to middle income countries, 73, three quarters are in these kinds of countries. So it just shows us that there's a lot of work that we need to do. There's a lot of stigma. There's a lot of, lack of political community will to help people. Sometimes people are sidelined and pushed away, but they need to be brought center stage where we support them and they're able to do better. And just one more thing on the statistics. It is found that those who are aged 15 to 29-year-olds, these are the ones who have the highest risk of suicide. You find that it's the third leading cause of death in this age category. So many young people are struggling a lot, and we need to support them so that these people can get the support they need in order to thrive and be able to get back to the normal state that we're in before.
Okay, there are viewers, you are watching your medics, and our topic of discussion is suicide, and I have Dr. Matiya Ndengi to help us with the discussion. Feel free to contact us on the numbers reflecting on the screen. Well, Dr. Ndengi, what is the impact on an individual and the nation at large?
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to the individual, it's very distressing to actually attempt even suicide itself, because that means for somebody to reach a point where they want to take their lives, it means that they have no support, they are very much isolated, and they feel overwhelmed by whatever they're going through. So when they do attempt suicide, it can really affect them, even just physically, because people do all kinds of crazy things to end their lives. Sometimes people take acid, and if you destroy your esophagus, that means you won't be able to eat normally, because you've harmed your own body. So those people may not die immediately. So when that individual dies, you find that the family they leave behind will be traumatized. And like you said at the beginning, to find out if it's hereditary or it's passed on, if that person had children, when they're going through a crisis, they'll think, okay,
that's the easy way out.
That's the easy way out. And, my father, my mother did this, so I think this is also something I can do. So it's a very bad example to give to your family who remain behind, and they will really be always questioning themselves, could we have done more? Could we have done something to help this person? But so the best thing that you can do as an individual, when you feel that you are feeling suicidal, it's a very scary place to be, but open up, speak to a professional, mental health professional, speak to your family, and they'll help where they can. And for the nation at large, it means that the nation is going to lose out on human resource that could have contributed to society. Who knows? Maybe that person is supposed to be the next Minister of Finance to help our economy grow. So it's really important that we don't lose such human resource.
Exactly. So how can we prevent suicide and treat suicidal behavior?
So to treat and prevent suicide, we need to have an understanding of the risk factors of suicide. Some of the risk factors are mental health disorders, people who are experiencing depression, who have alcohol use disorders. These people are at risk of committing suicide, because depression, when somebody is depressed, statistics show somebody is 20 times more likely to commit suicide than somebody who's not depressed. So mental health disorders, a previous attempt, if somebody attempted suicide previously, they're at risk of attempting it again. Financial problems, when somebody is, very hard pressed financially, they're in debts. As a counselor, I've had, experiences where clients have maybe misappropriated funds, and they're in a lot of debt, and they're now beginning to become suicidal. So these are some of the risk factors. Another thing is relationship disputes. People can have challenges in marriage, challenges with their partners. Even at the hospital, we have situations where maybe a man or a woman decides to drink doom or something because somebody broke their heart, disappointed them. So it's an encouragement to our men out there that when you decide to get into a relationship, you should really put in your entire commitment into it. Because women, according to some research I did, have a higher oxytocin level, which is the love hormone. They love people very much, and if they are disappointed, it becomes a very serious risk factor to their mental health, and they may begin to feel suicidal. So men and women, we should always be committed to our relationships so that people don't develop suicidal behaviors. And another thing, chronic illnesses, cancer, HIV. HIV, for instance, when people get a diagnosis of HIV, it's very traumatic. They may feel like, this is a death sentence, I'm going to die. But actually, there's hope for these people. As long as they can be on their treatment, they can actually be able to lead a normal life. So these are some of the risk factors, and they need to be addressed for us to effectively prevent suicide from happening. So some of the prevention measures for preventing suicide are that, one, we need to have more awareness about suicide itself, because without awareness, it means that people will not know about how to prevent suicide. So like programs like these are very encouraged. Limiting access to lethal means such as guns, pesticides, different substances that people can use to harm themselves. So this is something that the government needs to look at, so that there's regulation. Even when people in the agricultural sector are selling these products, they should be conversant, say, what does this person want to buy this for? Because they might end up taking their own lives. The media should also be responsible in reporting suicide. It shouldn't be sensationalized, so that people are not encouraged to say, oh, that person committed suicide, they're now a celebrity, let me try to do it too. So the media needs to be also conversant. Early identification and treatment. Those signs that we talked about, people should be able to identify them and be able to refer that person for treatment, and it will help a lot in prevention.
Okay. So earlier you mentioned that some use there's alcohol use disorder.
Yes.
So how can you tell that this is happening into somebody?
Yeah, so alcohol is a recreational substance, and people take it casually, even just when they're having a good time. But if somebody has become dependent on alcohol, it means that their whole life now revolves around alcohol, and it means they are not thinking about work, about their family. They are just, even when they don't take it, they have withdrawal symptoms, and they're so dependent on this drug. And it actually causes them to be depressed, because it will be affecting their livelihood and their general well-being. So such people sometimes will tend to become suicidal because they feel that alcohol has become a stronghold. But through therapy, through certain medicational interventions that we offer at hospitals, we're able to help this person detoxify and start a new path where they can take the alcohol in moderation. It's all about moderation. If people take too much alcohol, it means it's not safe for them. The World Health Organization says about 14 units of alcohol per week is what's recommended for people. So that's about 6 standard bottles of 5% alcohol. So you shouldn't be taking more than 14 units, more than 6 bottles in a week, because that is beyond the recommended limit. So if you're taking even stronger alcohols, which are 45%, there's a formula that you use to calculate the number of units. So, for example, 1 bottle of whiskey, yes, let's say whiskey is a bit too, it's maybe 45%, but just for simplicity, let's say a lager, let's say, which is 5%. So a unit of alcohol would be equal to the percentage of that alcohol multiplied by the volume over 1,000. So if, let's say, 5% is a percentage multiplied by the volume, which is 500, 5 times 500 is 2,500. Divided by 1,000, that's 2.5. So 2.5 units is what you find in just a 500 ml bottle of lager. So if you take 2 of those, that means you'd have taken how many units? 5 units. If you take 4 of them, it means that's 10, right? Yeah. So if you take 6 of them, that would be 15. So that's the limit. 15, you shouldn't go beyond 15. If you go beyond 15 in a particular day, you may damage your liver, and it may even damage your brain, your ability to remember, things like that.
Okay. So can you discuss the importance of early intervention in mental health treatment?
Early intervention is very critical. Yes. If people do not have intervention early for their mental health challenges, it will actually spiral into them being suicidal. So some of the interventions, like I mentioned, therapy, there's what you call cognitive behavioral therapy, where we help this person understand that they're able to overcome whatever challenge they're facing. Maybe it's depression, anxiety, alcohol use disorder. So therapy goes a long way. Support groups. At my organization, we have support groups for men and for women where people come together and we're able to encourage them. People are able to share experiences, and that really goes a long way to help them. Medication. Some people need medication, antidepressants, when they are not seeming to get out of that cycle of depression. So we really try our best to help them as much as possible.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, viewers, you're watching The Medics, and please feel free to interact with us. You can call us on 0211 25 30 25, or you can WhatsApp or text on 0976 832269. Our topic of discussion today is suicide, and I have Dr. Ndengi to help us with the discussion. So how does access to mental health resources vary across different communities, Dr. Ndengi?
There's a big variation, especially when you look at the global scale. You have first world countries are very much proactive in providing mental health resources. They have, let's say, applications, which are some of the things that we're also trying to develop as well. Applications that allow people to access these services, mental health services, remotely. They invest a lot in their mental health frameworks, and that's what's happening out there. And you find that's why the statistics that I shared, that 75% of suicides are actually in Africa and low to mid-income countries. So there's not enough being done because of stigma, and people don't even want to go to Chinama. If somebody says you're going to Chinama, they'll think you're crazy, and they'll always look down upon you. So that accessibility needs to be improved by awareness, helping people to know that it's okay not to be okay. People can go to the hospital, seek that support they need, and they will be supported.
Okay. So Dr. Ndengi, what are some of the effective coping strategies individuals can use when feeling overwhelmed?
Some strategies that they can use to feel better is they need to do the exact opposite of what they feel like doing. Because when somebody is feeling overwhelmed, they will want to just stay indoors, not mingle with friends, and that actually makes the problem even worse. So if you feel like staying indoors, talking to no one, go out there, talk to family, talk to friends. As you vent and share your problems, you actually start feeling better. Another thing is exercise. Exercise releases hormones called endorphins, which allow someone to feel better. So many times I myself just take a walk around my neighborhood, do a jog from time to time, because that naturally makes a person feel better and healthier. Apart from exercise, good nutrition. When we are so busy and so overwhelmed, sometimes we neglect our food. You know, somebody once said, let your food be your medicine, and your medicine be your food. So not your medicine be your food. So medicine shouldn't be what should be making you healthy, but your food should actually help you to be healthy. So make sure you have a balanced diet. Make sure you have all your greens, your vegetables, and you have all those nutrients that will help you to combat stress. Because stress, if not tackled well, leads to you being burnt out. And from burnout, you can become depressed and other mental health conditions. And of course, other coping strategies that have been proven to be useful. Journaling. People can journal, write down how they feel in a diary, express yourself. Sometimes you can write poetry, poetry that people can be able to resonate with, and just to allow you to express yourself. So poetry is also a good thing that I can encourage people to do. And also, last but not the least, seeking help from professionals is mostly encouraged.
Okay. So now, is there ever a good reason for someone to commit suicide?
I don't think there's a good reason enough that you can ever find. Yeah, it's normally when somebody is in that state where they want to commit suicide, it's because they are overwhelmed and they themselves don't want to commit suicide, but they feel it's the only way out. Yeah, so be it financial problems, be it a breakup, be it chronic illness, you name it, none of these things are sufficient for someone to say that, okay, I'm going to take my life. But of course, when you try to step into their world, let's say they owe 800,000 kwacha and they're earning 2,000 kwacha per month. Maybe they gambled that money. They'll think to say, where am I going to turn to? I'm going to end up in prison. But these people can reach out to even government for assistance, maybe to social welfare, well-wishers, because we rather have that person be alive than dead, because that person could contribute to society.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We now go for a break. We'll be back shortly. People don't give money. The government gives money, doctor. You are owing, and then they'll tell you to get a loan again from the bank.
Yeah.
And on your payslip there will be nothing.
True. It's they can just give ideas, support you, connect you to international partners. Yeah.
You know, this suicide thing has become so common among especially civil servants. Most of them are ending their lives because of they are owing a lot of institutions and they are owing a lot of people. Only this week I had a teacher in Kawe who committed suicide because she was owing a lot of institutions money.
I see. True. That's really happens.
Yeah.
There's even another young lady from Luansha, about 22 years old. She was pregnant and she committed suicide. So it's really becoming a concern.
I'm a pastor who is rapping, and then I'm rejected in chicken.
Every Saturday at 14 hours and Sunday at 9 hours on ZNBC's TV2. Gospel cruise. If it's not the gospel, don't cruise it.
Well, welcome back. We continue with our discussion on suicide. So, Dr. Ndengi, what is the role of therapy in treating depression and preventing suicide?
Therapy is very integral and very key. And it's something which really is not a common practice in Africa. Men are taught to maybe just be strong, not to talk to anyone. And you find that even makes the matter worse. Ladies sometimes tend to open up to friends, family, but men sometimes we just keep it to ourselves. And in the end, it affects us. So therapy helps somebody to find hope even in the midst of whatsoever circumstance they have gone through, be it loss of the loved ones, financial problems, illness. Therapy has been proven that 75% of people who seek therapy actually feel better and are less suicidal at the end of the day. So therapy is highly encouraged for anyone who is going through a tough time.
Okay. But Dr. Ndeng, is it possible for a suicidal person to never commit suicide or think about it in future, or do they always end up committing suicide at a later stage?
It's a risk factor. If somebody commits suicide before or had suicidal thoughts, they can have those suicidal thoughts again later. But as they learn those coping strategies we talked about, being able to exercise, being able to be well connected to family, support systems, being able to have a good and balanced diet, be able to seek professional help, be able to journal, write poetry, and just have that support group system, you find that the next time it will be so much easier to overcome those suicidal thoughts. Yeah.
Okay. But is it that, people who end up being suicidal, are they weak? How would you describe them?
That's what society may sometimes think, to say this person was weak, they're not strong enough. But in actual sense, they weren't weak, they were just overwhelmed. And anyone can be at risk of, having suicidal thoughts. So those people were just overwhelmed, they were just going through a very difficult situation without any support. But with sufficient support and encouragement, they would have been able to overcome those suicidal thoughts. But sometimes, like I said, people think you're just attention seeking, you're just, trying to draw people's attention, but you're actually going through something, and these people need to be assisted and helped.
Okay. Now, why is it that there are some individuals still end up committing suicide even after being cancelled?
Yeah, true. You do have such situations where people are cancelled, but they don't feel better.
They just tell themselves that me, I'll just have to fulfill.
Yeah. So for such individuals, it's they really need aggressive therapy. For example, we give them much longer periods of treatment compared to people who are milder. So we can give them up to 12 sessions. Normally we give them up to 5-8 sessions. But if somebody is severely depressed, we can extend the amount of therapy sessions. We can put them on medication. So sometimes it's lack of access to the right mental health support, because these people may not know that medication is available. Since they don't want to go to the hospital, they may not have access to a counselor because they feel they don't want to open up about the issue. So there's a lot of people wanting their own way and not wanting to be assisted. But if people really open up and say, okay, please help me, you find that they could have actually been able to overcome and not ended up committing suicide.
Okay. Now, doctor, can suicidal thoughts be treated medically?
Absolutely, they can. They can be treated, and we have antidepressants, for instance. These antidepressants have always been researched, and they're always improving in terms of their quality. So somebody who's treated with, who's depressed and maybe they're not being treated by therapy alone, they could be coupled with an antidepressant, and that medication will help to improve their mood, because there are certain drugs called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. It increases a neurotransmitter called serotonin that will help somebody feel better. It takes a bit of time, maybe 6 weeks, for them to see the benefit, but they definitely will start feeling better.
Okay, so that also helps in people with depression?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Now, how can individuals and society approach suicidal individuals in a way that won't push them away?
True. Yeah, definitely. It's very important to treat this matter with care. These people should not be labeled as weak. They shouldn't be labeled as, being crazy. They should be approached in such a manner where we have empathy. We understand and appreciate to see they're going through a hard time. Sometimes we may just brush them off and say these people are not, serious. They don't want to take care of their families. That's why they want to take their own lives. But they actually just need empathy. We need to tell them, okay, we understand what you're going through. If a person has even gone through something similar, that's the best person to go encourage that person, so that they know that they can come out of debt, that they can heal from a broken relationship, that they can come out of whatever struggle that they're faced. So we should always have empathy, compassion, and give them hope. Because it's like when you are in a ditch. When you're in a ditch, you need somebody who's outside the ditch to pull you out. When you're in there, you feel hopeless. But if we tell people in the ditch, you see you've got yourself into that problem, it won't help. You need to be compassionate, help them out, and they'll definitely be able to recover.
But if I'm going to help somebody with those thoughts, For me to help them, I need to offer them a solution. I need to go there with money. If it's financial problems, you know,
Yeah, I get
just
what
my
you mean.
words will not help them. I need to go there with something.
True. Yeah, it becomes a challenge, especially in the when it's an issue of debt.
Yeah.
But where there's a will, there's a way. Yeah, where there's a will, there's a way. With enough support, there's actually out there. There are so many philanthropists who want to give money to the right causes. So maybe it even makes me think to say maybe I need to have a philanthropic fund that allows people to donate funds to help people who are going through suicidal thoughts in terms of finances.
Exactly. Okay. Now, what should someone do if they have a loved one who has attempted suicide?
If they have a loved one who's attempted suicide, it's really heavy for them, especially parents who've lost loved ones. It's really distressing. And it's distressing even when they're even having children, for example, having suicidal thoughts. So when they've lost a loved one, they also may need therapy, because grieving the loss of someone, maybe your own child, is so much harder. So those people who've lost a loved one due to suicide, they need to reflect, try to find out what they did wrong or what they didn't do. Did they ignore the warning signs? Yeah, so then we need to really take stock of what went wrong so that it does not repeat itself, and even to safeguard others within the family, because if one person commits suicide in the family, another person might. So it's a wake-up call for the family to say, what are we doing wrong? Are we showing that care, that compassion to our family members so they don't feel isolated?
Okay. So now, in your experience, how does social media impact mental health and suicidal behavior?
It greatly impacts mental health. Social media is has, of course, is a good development. We are able to connect with friends from around the world, but sometimes people tend to feel depressed because everyone is posting, I'm getting married, I'm graduating, and if somebody hasn't really achieved some of those milestones, they feel a bit discouraged. But what people need to know is that what we see on social media is just the good side. People have gone through a lot of struggles, a lot of challenges. You're not able to see the background struggles that I've gone through. So you just need to take it with a grain of salt that even though everybody's life seems perfect, they're also having challenges. And you too, if you're able to just focus, strive and work hard, you can also be able to achieve a similar level of success.
Exactly. So how important is it for individuals to talk about their feelings and experiences with others?
It's very, very important. People sometimes tend to isolate themselves. They don't want to tell others about their struggles. It's very bad, especially, like I said, for men. Men sometimes tend to have this Superman complex where you just seem so strong, and yet in the background you're really stressed. So we encourage such men to talk to their wives, talk to their family, seek a professional, and it will help them a lot by expressing that those trials they're facing. If you keep it within yourself, it's like a volcano waiting to erupt, and somebody may end up doing something they would regret. So it's important people express themselves. And even just in African culture, sometimes you find that children don't really speak much with their parents, but they're going through a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah, so parents need to be proactive, find out how's your child doing, what's really stressing them out, because you really find that without that communication, they won't be able to open up to you. And just one more thing on the social media you mentioned, there's a trend that's happening worldwide where the people who are doing what you call cyberbullying and extortion, where they talk to somebody over social media and try to bribe them into sharing maybe images which are inappropriate, then threaten them to say that they'll share these images and they'll ruin their reputation. So those children actually end up taking their lives. There's a child about 14 years old in the USA who had a similar experience and ended his life. So it's really important that social media for our kids, we need to really keep them safe and make them have that platform to open up and share when they're going through difficult circumstances.
Okay. Now, Dr. Ndengi, what resources are available for someone in immediate crisis?
Yeah, immediate crises are very delicate, and somebody needs to really act quickly, because if they don't, they might do something which is going to harm them. So these people can call emergency lines like 911. There's also 933, that's for mental health crises. So once you call these emergency services, you'll be able to you'll be able to find that mental health support that you need. So these crisis hotlines are very useful, and they can enable people to just find that immediate support. And of course, they can always go to the hospital. The hospital can be always available to help them when they're in a state of crisis. They can call somebody to quickly come to their aid, especially if, let's say, they've taken something poisonous. They need to be urgently assisted at a hospital, because time is life, and they need to be assisted immediately. So emergency hotlines, going to the hospital, talking to family to help immediately can go a long way when in a crisis.
Okay. So how can we encourage open conversations about mental health in schools and workplaces?
One of the things that can be done is, first of all, it's a multi-sectoral approach, like you said. Education sectors, the workplace, the community, everybody needs to come on board so that mental health challenges are addressed. So people in schools should be able to have workshops where they tell their students about mental health related challenges and how to find help when they're in a crisis. Employers as well need to support their employees so that they don't feel isolated. They're supported. There's that openness. Yeah, so it's very important. Even our organization is trying to now reach out to organizations to partner with us so that we can offer support for their employees, so that they're not left in a point where they have no one to talk to.
Okay. So Dr. Ndengi, what advice would you give to someone who feels ashamed or embarrassed about their mental health struggles?
If somebody is ashamed or embarrassed, it's hard to open up. And certain people have certain personalities where they are not very social, they are very withdrawn. So if somebody is feeling ashamed, they need to talk to, there's always somebody who they can be very close to. It could be maybe their mother, their aunt, their brother. There's always that person who they are free with. So they can talk to that person, and that person can facilitate other means to help them. Yeah, because no one was just born on their own.
Exactly.
There are always those people in our proximity who we are familiar with, who we are comfortable with, and these people can be able to help them when they feel a bit ashamed. And even just professional help. Sometimes when people, let's say in the workplace, are going through something, they don't want to tell someone who they know, because that information can be used against them.
Yeah.
So you can always talk to a professional who is maybe for an organization like ours or any other, who is not related to you, who doesn't know anything about you, and that information will be kept in confidence.
Okay. So can you discuss the importance of self-care in managing depression?
Self-care. Self-care is very critical, because without self-care, people can only become worse and spiral into greater severities of depression. So self-care means one is intentional about taking care of their health physically, emotionally, socially. They are deliberate by ensuring they find time to, practice their hobbies, go out for a walk, for a jog, sports. They are also proactive in seeking help from counselors when they're in a time of crisis. They're taking care of themselves in terms of their nutrition. They are just deliberate, because, when, for example, a person becomes a parent, for example, they have children to take care of, they have work needs. So sometimes people neglect themselves. But you need to pause. You need to find time to rest. The human body was made in such a way that you need to have at least 8 hours of rest and about 16 hours of work. So you need to find that time to rest so that you can be able to recuperate and keep facing the stresses of life without breaking down.
Okay. Now, is there a way that you can connect to the substance abuse and increased suicide risk?
Absolutely. There's a link between the two. because substance use really makes somebody dependent. They can become addicted to alcohol, addicted to drugs, and once that addiction sets in, it will become so much that nothing else will become important. Their family won't become important, their work won't become important, and this is how certain people get fired, certain people start being isolated from the family, people start saying bad things about them. So when somebody is hooked to any particular substance, it really deteriorates their mental health very quickly. So such people really need to be given mental health support. And people, yeah, in families, there are those people who no, that person is an alcoholic, they drink so much, and their life is not really amounting to much. So when you find that there are such people, you need to bring them to professionals, take them to Chinama, take them to different mental health institutions, and these will be supported, given coping strategies, support groups. Like, in fact, this Saturday, we'll be having a support group where we've invited an alcohol recovery specialist to talk to people about how to overcome substance abuse and whatnot. So they can definitely be able to find help.
Okay, interesting. So, Doctor, we have 4 minutes remaining before we close the program. So, just a quick one. How can we better support healthcare professionals who work with individuals dealing with, suicidal thoughts?
These professionals need to be made aware, to be equipped with the skills that they need to offer that support. They need to be compassionate, they need to be dedicated, because sometimes people reach out to therapists, maybe they don't really offer them that service that they really need. So they need to be confidential about that information, because confidentiality is at the core of that therapeutic relationship. They need to be, deliberate, caring, showing that dedication to help that patient, that client at all costs. So these healthcare professionals need to be continuously equipped with workshops, with